Millennial generation. It's the folks born between 1981 to 1997, as the Pew Research had just announced about a month ago. Before then, we weren't quite sure when the generation actually existed. 75.4 million children born in the United States in that generation. Just 600,000 shy of the baby boomers, which is about 76 million. Those numbers are very important because it shows the trends that are going to happen in the future here. We see even today that millennials make up the largest workforce in the United States. More than the baby boomers who are graying out and starting to retire, and the Gen Xers, the ones in between the baby boomers and the millennials. And so they're just beginning to come into the stages where leadership skills are extremely important. They're moving up into the ranks of the managerial phases in corporations. And the problem has been how the leaders, one of their number one job is to build a legacy or to nurture up the next generation of leaders. We've read articles where it said it's kind of difficult for the leaders to somehow train the millennials in leadership skills. And I thought that was kind of interesting. So last summer I was speaking with a friend of mine who couldn't make it today because he has a pressing deadline on Monday. He says, we should do a study about why that is. Now, the millennials have been called the entitled generation. They just think that by showing up, they're entitled to stuff. Baby boomers, we were glad we could just show up, right? I mean, we got there for dinner. I was always hoping there'd be some food left over from the rest of the family eating, right? If I got there late, too bad. I had two choices, take it or leave it, right? Whereas today we have many choices for the millennials. The other thing that they're called is the trophy generation. They get a trophy just because they were there. You can be the worst soccer player on this worst soccer team, and you get a trophy. That doesn't really build good self-esteem. It doesn't build really good character because they didn't have to strive for it. As a result, the reward system doesn't really seem to work for them because they figure they're just going to get it because they're there. So how can we fix that situation? And that's what this study was about. So let me introduce my team. I'm David Zimmer. I'm a mid-baby boomer, born right smack dab in the middle of the baby boomer generation. For the mathematicians in the audience, I'll let you figure out the math what my age really is. And we have Chantel Moore. We'll call her a late millennial. She was born towards the tail end of the millennial generation. And then we have Michael Daniels. He's a mid-millennial. He's a little bit older. So we'll call him old fart of the team. And then we have Alex Nadio, who is also a late millennial. And I like this team makeup because it gave us a good perspective. I could come with the older generation perspective, one from a leadership position in corporations and what would take place as they start to age up into that area. And then they gave me a good perception as well. Now, just to help you understand a little bit about my background, I have two sons. One's at 23 and one's 19. Both are costing me a fortune in college at this point. So I understand the millennial mindset from a parenting perspective. I understand it from a work perspective because I work with a lot of millennials as well. But then working with these three folks very closely and having good conversations, good back and forth, then that gave me some more information. So here's the question. The millennials, basically they don't understand a world without technology. Which is interesting. When I was growing up, you had to get the phone. Today we carry the phone with us. The number one question was, I wonder who's calling. We didn't have caller ID. We just had to pick it up. We didn't even have voicemail. So it would ring, ring, and ring, and ring. And if you knew it was a person you didn't want to speak to, you had to outlast them. Right? We didn't have email. We didn't have the internet. When I had to do research papers, I had to open up those old encyclopedia books and read for hours. And I don't know about you, but I did not like that. Today, in matters of seconds, you can almost become an expert in almost anything you want simply by searching for it on Google or any other search engines. So they really don't understand a world without technology. They're more social, supposedly. Right? They're all on their phone. talking with their friends, interacting with their friends, but it's all a very virtual experience. In reality, they stand next to each other on their phones, texting to the person right next to them. You go into the dance. You're taking this guy, right? That's their social aspect. To me, that's a major concern. Many years ago, I wrote an article as this technology was starting to take place. And the question was, are we really going to be more social? Or is it going to cut the lines of communications? I think that question still needs to be answered, but we're starting to see some of it. And then finally, their self-esteem was given to them. It wasn't earned. I had to earn the praises of my parents or my coaches or my teachers. It wasn't just given to me, hey, good job, because they were trying to build my self-esteem. No, they were trying to build my character. They were trying to forge that self-esteem through fire, through beating on it and making sure that it became firm. Who we have that today is a big concern. So, here's the question then. Do millennials differ from the previous generations? Going back to the original questions, how as a leader do I train the millennials to take over my position when I lead? Do they have different needs? Do they have different desires, different wants? Are they really different than me when I was that age? And yes, I can remember that far back. I can remember in my 20s, in my 30s, as if it was yesterday. Sometimes I wake up thinking I'm still 20. So I get out of bed. My body says no more. Right? And so with that, I'm going to hand it over to Chantel, and she's going to take from there how we want to do this stuff.
Okay, so like Professor Zimmer said, we weren't really sure the route we were going in the beginning. So we first started off by doing some background research and background knowledge just to get like a fundamental sense of where we were going with the topic. And also this is a really great opportunity for us as interns because we haven't really been exposed to a research topic where we had to like do it for 20 hours a week and do it for months at a time and really dig deep into this research. Since we were not meeting for the full 20 hours a week, we had to obviously be remote, and OneNote was a great tool for this because the fact that we were all able to look at one media, I guess, and also see everyone else's research and whatnot. Additionally, each Wednesday we met at 7 o'clock. We discussed our findings from that week and as well as collaborated and gave our thoughts and whatnot. And as well as we kind of brainstormed on the path we wanted to go for the next week to be all on the same page. Our findings in OneNote gave us the knowledge and resources to generate accurate questions for our survey. We distributed our survey through many channels such as social media including LinkedIn, Facebook, emailing it, and also asking our friends and family to take the survey. Professor Zimmer also had his students in class take it, so that's about 30 more millennials that we were able to get their information. And then lastly, on campus, we had a survey conduction where we invited students to come and take our survey for a free slice of pizza. Lastly, we analyzed our results, which Alex will get into a little bit later. However, this was also a great learning tool because it gave us a little bit more exposure into something that we haven't done in classes to learn more about Excel. So from our research, these 5 leadership traits constantly were reoccurring in successful leaders regardless of the generation. The first is respect. What we mean by this is that there needs to be respect on both levels. That means if the boss is an older generation and the subordinate is a millennial, there needs to be respect from the boss to the millennial and also the millennial to the boss. As far as significance, everyone wants a purpose. Nobody wants to really be doing busy work. So if you're giving someone a task, they're going to ask why, and that's kind of the thing about millennials you'll hear nowadays. They always want to know why. It's more just to know that they have some significance in the company. Appreciation completed, there needs to be some sort of appreciation or recognition is needed. I'm not saying that we need an award ceremony for when something is like completed, but a thank you email is all we need, and that'll go a really long way. That way that person knows, hey, I'm actually being appreciated for the work that I'm putting in. Even with failures, a great leader understands that growth comes with it. So if somebody fails on a project, they still need to know that they're appreciated their efforts, and if they really are a great leader, that they will continue to guide them to the right way. Adaptability, there's no one size fits all, and we'll learn about that more in our presentation. A great leader must assess the situation, including environment, their personal differences, culture, and adapt and learn how to go ahead and lead that person appropriately. And trust. The older generations kind of need to have more trust in millennials. No one wants to feel like they're being babied or micromanaged. If you give them the task, they need to feel like you trust them in getting that work done. So previously we were just focusing, this is towards the beginning of our internship, we were just focusing on the leader. We were only looking on what traits a leader had. And Professor Goldberg, who's actually the professor that kind of monitors our hours and who we report to each week, mentioned to Mike, try thinking about looking at the follower types. And this kind of spun our research in a different area, and we learned a lot about that. So we broke them down into 4 follower types, and each one we shifted the names. So if you look on some articles, we don't have the exact same names, but I will go through and explain what each one means. Proactive. So these are the followers that take the most initiative. They have the desire for both personal and professional growth. So it's not that they're coming to work and they're getting their job done. They're really engaged in what they're doing. And they like to challenge their leaders. If it's a good leader will mentor them through it. If it's a weak leader, sometimes when someone that's underneath of them challenges them, they kind of get uneasy. Sheep. Now, these are the people that are okay or are complacent with the 9 to 5. They come to work, they get the job done, they don't think about it after 5 o'clock. There's no real emotional attachment to their work, and not everyone wants to be a leader, so it is common for sheep to be in the workplace, and that's totally okay. Diehard/loyalist. This follower is the ones that kind of just follow that person because they are so connected to that person or to the task at hand. They usually have the most emotional connection to the leader and or the task or cause. Now, this is someone kind of like, not to bring it up, but like Hitler's followers. They were diehards. They were going to do anything and everything that he said, and that just showed what type of followers they were, even if they weren't doing something that was great. And last but not least is an isolate. Isolates follow, these followers cannot start off as isolates. It's kind of a combination of two, and they're a subset of the proactive and or the die-hard. And what I mean by that is, a proactive, really, like I said, is emotionally engaged. Now, say some reason they don't become so engaged, they can go ahead and become an isolate, so they just stick to themselves and not really putting in as much effort as usual. As well as a die-hard, they can also become an isolate because they can lose their engagement with the cause. So now this, when we came up with our proactive, sheep, diehard, and isolate, these other words right next to them, this is what us as a group came up with. These are the type of leaders that a proactive person will need, a sheep will need, and so on and so forth. So the leader-follower interaction, this is where a leader needs to be able to have the ability to adapt, as well as each follower each follower requires a different leadership, And this is what we came up with. For proactive or mentor, we need to nurture this type of person. These are most likely going to be the next generational leaders. So that leader really needs to mentor them and get them ready for them to kind of step up into the plate. For a sheep, we need to really delegate them. They're not really interested and they're okay with the busy work, and that's fine. We just need to give them a task, delegate what they're doing, and move on from that. And then a diehard, we really need to guide their energies. Like I mentioned, the Hitler example, it can become against you if you're not really guiding them in positive ways. They usually become the yes men, and they're usually attached to the person, willing to do almost anything for that leader. And an isolate, you really need to listen to them. A leader needs to figure out what type of isolate they are. They're going to be a proactive, turned into an isolate, or a saboteur. Did I say that right? To go from there and listen to determine which way you want to bring them back. Do you want to bring them as a proactive back into your inside group, or do you want to bring them as a diehard back into their inside group? When a proactive loses their desire to grow within their current company, however, still has personal growth, this is what develops into a isolate. On the contrary, if a diehard follower becomes an isolate, they lose attachment to that follower. The recurring theme of an isolate is the loss of emotional attachment.
So this is where I felt like our team had the most fun, in my opinion. The team started to really see research come together, come alive, so to speak. As Chantal mentioned, the articles, the peer reviews, the discussions, all started to begin to point to questions that we initially wanted to put on the survey and really start to collect our data. We wanted to see how these questions would be answered within multiple demographics to spot trends, and we wanted to see it all begin really come to focus. We weren't looking for quantity, we were looking for quality since we knew the sample size would be smaller. We ended up getting more people than asked for. We were originally after 100 individuals, and we ended up getting 151, which we were all happy about. We knew the data would be skewed towards younger millennials because we were, in fact, having a pizza party on a college campus. But either way, we wanted to see which young millennials and how young millennials would turn out. But the big question we really wanted to answer was finally constructive. And are there differentiators among different age groups in terms of being led? And the answer, I'll tell you right now, is no. And we will tell you more about that in a few minutes as Alex will speak. So this is sort of the construction in a nutshell. We wanted to know about these individuals and what they thought about leadership, so we could begin to see how they wanted to lead. We had them self-identify their own style. Are they a leader? Are they a follower? Are they independent? Which means they will lead if need be, but most likely wanted to be followers. Then in a short sentence, we had the individuals describe the leadership style. This would eventually help us to find key words that will allow us to then link them together to the type of follower, as Chantal spoke about just a short time ago. The preferred work style was interesting. This really helped me understand even where I truly wanted to be after graduation, which helped me identify myself in some categories. And we wanted to see which work style or company setting the graduating millennials were seeking and where the company was in its quote-unquote company life. We also wanted to see how work style would be answered because we all had our assumptions about baby boomers, millennials, Gen Xers, and the questions then started to formulate, like, do all graduating millennials want to take risks early, work on that cutting edge company, with the potential for more income as the company grows, or do these millennials just want to come out of college, find a structured environment, and kind of move up a structured avenue? And then, basically, do they want stress-free work environment, or do they want a challenge and show a fast, gritty determination. So finally, we set the individuals of our survey as followers, and we asked them to pick from a pool of leaders, well-known leaders from past generations and from different demographics such as race, gender, and religion. Again, we asked them to pick a leader and tell us why they picked the leader in a short sentence or two. And this is where we thought most of the insight will come from. We wanted to see who they wanted to follow, who they wanted to emulate, who the strongest leader was, and which leader was the weakest and they did not want to follow. This is what the why truly provided us the insight when we began to see the data come alive. The list of leaders they could choose from were Martin Luther King Jr., Ronald Reagan, Mother Teresa, Abraham Lincoln, Oprah, Princess Diana, Mark Zuckerberg, and Steve Jobs. Although some current events were affected by some leaders, we still got the expected data to come alive, and we began to see trends formulated. So this was the age distribution breakdown. Again, we held the survey in person with free pizza on a college campus, so we knew it was going to be skewed towards 18 and 22-year-old millennials. But we also distributed to friends and family and advertised on every social media network to kind of complete the age distribution. We then broke up the millennials into subsets, breaking up older and younger millennials by how they wore, say, a baseball cap. The older generation of millennials like the brim curve. Younger generations tend to have it flat brimmed. And after that, we looked at below 18-year-olds, and we didn't quite have a name for them, so we considered them the Tide Pod generation because of what they were doing online and God knows what else. So the team and I were pretty happy with the gender distribution. It was essentially even, and it provided great insight as well. We actually did have one person preferred not to be identified as male or female, but like I said, this did not shift our data in any way, and would most likely be something interesting moving forward in our research. Race distribution was heavily weighted towards Caucasians. This was random and we had no control over this, but even the smaller sample size of other races began to pay dividends in how different cultures see leadership.
Before I begin, I'd like to reiterate the fact that Mike stated that the sample size is small, so we are only establishing trends rather than full-on fundamental theories. We're comparing age between 5 different sample sizes: the company size, work environment, leader type, work style, and the company type. Overall, there hasn't been any discrepancies between one generation to another, other than the fact that age versus company type, the 18 to 22-year-olds prefer on the rise over anything else, while every other age demographic prefers the well-established. This is just due to the stage in their career. They're more able to take a risk and take less financial responsibilities outside of themselves. They don't have a family, they don't have a home, so they're able to be more risk tolerant. One thing noted is, other than company type, everyone else had the same spreads throughout. A medium-sized company was preferred, as well as a flexible work environment, a mentor as a leader, and lastly, an in-between work environment. So this supports our initial theory that no matter the age, the needs are still the same, and the only discrepancy is just the stage in the career. Next, we use the same comparison with the 5 tools, but this time we broke it down by gender to see if there's a difference then. Once again, there's still no real differences, other than company type, where more males preferred on the rise over well-established, even though the margin is only a couple off at the most, maybe 32 females preferred well-established with 30 males, with 30 preferring on the rise. On the contrary, with males, it's about 31 on the rise with 30 well-established. But this could just be just for the number of male responses versus female responses. It's worth noting, but it's not a real differentiator in the trends. However, as you can see, the distribution is relatively similar throughout each kind. The only thing is there were 9 more male responses, so the graph will look slightly skewed in the male direction. Lastly is race with the same 5: company size, work environment, leader type, work style, and company type. The graph looks very skewed, and that is just due to the fact that 57% of the responses were from Caucasians. However, you're still able to identify the same trends just as with age and gender. The in-between work environment with a medium-sized company with flexibility and a mentor, all the same throughout, and once again, well-established is still the prominent company type, even though there are still some with the desire for a company to be on the rise. This, as well as the age and gender, really supports our theories that there is no differentiator in desires and needs between generation and age demographic, as all of them have had very similar splits and trends. The next phase is what drew a follower to a leader. We were able to come up with these 5 phrases: the character, impact, strength, passion, and communication, based off of the 5 questions that Mike mentioned earlier. Who do we want to follow? Who do we emulate? Who's the strongest? Who to avoid? Who would you not follow? These themes were able to be identified through the written responses that were presented in our survey and the pattern. With these 5 characters, we were able to base that off of those 4 questions. And even though they weren't directly saying the character in the leader is the most important, it's more about the phrasing that they used to describe that had a general theme in them. First, we compared gender and age to the theme. And as a whole, character seems to be the most important with the gender, no matter what phase they're in. Well, if you look at age for it, impact is the most important for 18 to 22-year-olds, and other than that, it becomes character again. This goes back to the stage in the career that you're at when you're 18 to 22. You're really trying to find your purpose, so you want to find someone who can make a significant impact on you. While once you're 23 and older, that's when you're becoming more financially obligated, so you'll have to be working with this person for years, so you'd be more concerned about their character rather than their social impact. Next, we compared race to the leadership theme. And once again, I'd like to know it looks skewed in the Caucasian. That's just due to the fact the majority of the responses were from Caucasian participants. And once again, character and impact are the 2 highest ones. What was kind of surprising is communication throughout was very low in responses. And personally, I want a leader to be able to communicate with me both efficiently and effectively. If they're not able to convey what they want you to do, then no matter what you do, it won't be good enough, since they won't give you any sense of direction. And then we did a comparison as well with the self-identified leadership trait, where you're asked if you're picked to be a follow, independent, or lead. And once again, character for independent and lead is the most important. But however, with follow, the most important is impact, which makes sense, since if you're just following someone, you want to know you're actually doing something rather than the person's emotional character, since you're just there for the task.